Arjun, why do you think people should listen to you on this episode?
The world of podcasting and short form video content is pretty much blowing up. If you are an entrepreneur or if you are like someone who's in a big company who's thinking about building their personal brand, you cannot ignore video content or video marketing. And like podcasting is what most easiest way to create video content, but also there's ways in which you can create video content without a podcast. And so here we are going to be discussing about like personal branding and anything to do with how video content gets produced. And so if this is of interest to you, you definitely want to hear this episode, especially how you can leverage AI for doing these things much more easier, much more efficiently.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. Because I'm actually very excited to have this conversation with you. The person I'm speaking with today is Arjun. He has over 18 years of experience within the tech industries, and right from the days where he was a product engineer at Microsoft, then to Foursquare, and now Arjun is the founder and CEO of Zync.ai, an all-in-one suite designed to streamline every step of podcasting, from planning episodes to recording to producing and to promotion, basically end to end. So as you said, if you are a human being, let's start from there. If you're a human being in 2024 and beyond, and you want to take your personal brand seriously, and you own a business, it is very important for you to listen to this episode to the very end, because when we're talking about long-form content, giving you the ability to educate your target audience about what you're offering, and being able to chop up those long-form content into shorter-form content, we're going to discuss basically all of that, and essentially giving you that power to create so much volume in a very saturated media space. So you need to stick to the end. It would be a good time to like the video because it helps the algorithm, and also subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, Arjun, for stopping by. So looking at your background, so let's just start from the beginning. So looking at your background, being part of teams, and when I checked your profile, you seem to be the kind that were part of teams that created utility-based products. What made you move from there to now creating something within the media? Because I'm in marketing, so what made you think, okay, I need to leverage my existing skills to create a solution that can help anybody that is interested in leveraging the media? What made you create Zinc.ai?
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't like a direct journey where it's like, one fine day it happened. It was like a series of like steps that took me to where I am right now. It started off with a role that I did between like after I quit Foursquare, before I started this, where I was working as an entrepreneur in residence at this place called Stanford Research Institute, where I was working with like voice technology, and we were spinning out like some of the latest in voice technology and like converting that into a startup. And so I started my first company called Ambit in the space of leveraging AI to understand how humans communicate with each other. What makes people excited, what makes people like talk, negotiate, all those things. Can we analyze their voice and find out that through the conversation? So that's kind of where I started this world into like video and media and audio world. So we spun off some technology. We started my first company in that space, and kind of fast forward for the interest of time to say that like when the pandemic hit and like every kind of conversation was happening virtually, this world of podcast was starting to blow up. Like video has always been on the rise, but it's seen meteoric rise in the last couple of years. And so for me, it was a great fit. We started off Zinc as more of a event platform where like people would be able to invite people, almost like a webinar, like where you can run like bigger, larger meetings. And then we saw the potential of just taking all conversations and converting that into video content that can give you like a longer bang for the buck, if you were to say that. So that's kind of what brought me to where we are right now as a podcasting platform. It's almost a studio. And we also have a solo studio, which is to say a place where you can just frequently go in, answer questions, and convert that into video content. It's another way that will make it even more easier to create short form video content than what it is right now. So we're kind of taking this video content production pretty seriously at this point in time.
All right. So this started off as something. This started off as a solution that helped, that had basically a very huge B2B potential, where you had a platform that people could host virtual webinars back then, and you felt you could democratize it further, and that's the version that we have right now. So still going back to the effects of business and content. So how would you say that content is very important within the business landscape today? The significance of businesses being their own production house, because I know that's basically one of the things that you're driving at with the solution, which we're going to get into much more better in this conversation. So what's the significance of content creation within the business landscape right now?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, almost every company will be a media company. People have been saying this for a few years now. If you look at where content creation is with businesses at this point of time, I was at a B2B MX conference a few weeks back, and I noticed still content marketing is still in the idea of white papers and downloading ebooks is kind of where it is at this point of time across several part of the things. There are cutting edge companies that are leveraging some of the latest in content marketing with regards to video, but businesses as a whole haven't quite adopted this. In fact, there's a B2B marketing conference with thousands of people attending, and there was not a single session on video. And you can see how far there is a gap in people coming to some of the latest in content marketing. And so that's one of the biggest thing that I would say. And then the other part when it comes to businesses is that there's this big shift happening from, because AI is creating content, any form of content that you see right now, you don't really know whether it was generated by AI. Should I be reading something that was generated by AI? This is that thing. So video, especially talking head video with the leaders themselves being there on the video, it brings that authentic sense of connection and trust with a business and a brand. And that's what audiences are shifting to right now is audience are trying to discern between a company that is a brand, a logo, versus here is a leader from whom I'm buying, and I know this person. And so that moving from that company's brand to a personal brand, you see Elon Musk's of the world and all those people being the face of the company, and they're building a brand around themselves. And that's happening quite a bit right now. It's starting with early stage startups and mid-sized companies where the leaders are starting to create their own production media houses over there. But it's kind of spreading more to bigger companies where execs and leaders are starting to be more on video, talking directly to their audience and customers.
Okay, so if I heard you correctly, before now, prehistoric, the way brands and businesses function was that they just build brand affinity with the audience, and that's just it. And the owners of the brand, the custodians of the brand, be it the founders, the executives, everybody's working on the ground and making that work. Right now, it has flipped, whereby brands that connect the most right now have people, human faces. They basically humanize the essence of the brand. So that's where personal branding comes into play, where we have people like you mentioned Elon Musk, but we have Gary Vaynerchuk, we have even Bill Gates, that wasn't even really known to be a talker, now talks so much about himself and Mark Zuckerberg of this world. So thank you so much for that. But your position here is basically what you do, what you're talking about is a phenomenon that we understand exists. So your position here with Zinc is to make it much more easier. So the question would be, how do you launch a podcast to find an audience? Because this is a very personal question for me, because I'm a podcaster myself, and what I do, there are, I already know my audience. My audience are basically entrepreneurs, young graduates, undergraduates, and things like that. And what I basically do is I look for the right guests that I am interested in as a speaker, and I'm open, like 100,000 people like me are interested in what I'm interested in. I find a particular speaker or a guest, and I essentially have therapy sessions with them. And this kind of sessions, I'm hoping will be able to help them. That is the way I look at it. But I believe and I assume that there are much more smarter ways to look at how to launch a podcast and how to find the right audience to make your podcast work. So that's the question I want to ask you.
So the question is like, how do you find the right audience, or what's the specific question? How do you find the right audience?
So if you want to launch a podcast, how do you find your audience? Yeah.
I think the way for podcast, when you're launching a podcast, is kind of very similar to when you're starting a company or so. You want to like solve a problem that people have. And this may not be like a big like sort of pain point, like, it's like they have a headache kind of problem. Like, it's like this could be like they want to know more about wellness, or like they want to know more about like fitness or something like that. They might have like, people might have that itch that you want to scratch for them. And so you need to know what problem that you're trying to solve for them. And then you need to be able to say who among them has this problem, right? Like, so like this exact problem, who has this, and like figure out the people who are having this problem. So in your case, you mentioned that like there are people who want to know how entrepreneurs start their companies or something like that. And then there are like a bunch of wannabe entrepreneurs who want to do this and they want to know about this, and that's kind of like your audience. And so ultimately, who has the problem and like what is that problem is something that you need to like clearly know. This is true for entrepreneurship as much as like starting a podcast. It's the exact same way of doing it. And pretty much in the exact same way, like you have to then figure out where your audience live. When I say live, in the sense like in the digital world, where do they hang out? Are they like browsing Reddit? Are they like on Instagram? Are they on LinkedIn? And like you then have to go set up shop there and like set up, you have to put your content over there in that channel. And that's kind of like the standard part of it. In some ways, I would also say finding an audience is easy if you are one among your audience, right? Like, so you want to scratch your itch, and if your audience, and then if you want to like talk to other people who are also in the same bucket, then it makes it really easy because you're solving a problem for yourself, and then like you'll know other people who want to actually solve for that same problem. So that's kind of easy. That's kind of a hack, I would say, is solve a problem that you care about, and then like you would be able to easily find an audience of other people who are similar to you, and that's the easy path. And podcast is just one way in which you can solve the problem for them. And it's the easiest way because you're able to just tap into the expertise and the network of like individuals and then bring them on and then be able to like use that to spread your audience. So it's one of the easiest way to start it, but you don't have to, and like podcast might be sometimes inconvenient because you have to like schedule with another person, but you could be creating content nevertheless around that as well, where you just answer questions that pop into your mind and you did the research to find the answers, share that so someone else doesn't have to do the research to find the answers. And so that's easy way of creating content as well. That's another like hack to like sort of create content that will resonate with your audience. And so I'd say like the audience, finding the audience is like the easy part is when you know what the problem is and who has a problem, and the audience kind of like comes around that.
Okay, so essentially creating answers for somebody, creating answers for certain audience profile in mind is essentially what a podcast means. Oh, okay, now we have that, got it. Now, as a podcaster, let me take you through my process. I schedule a session, or I have my own personal session with a computer and I answer questions or news or whatever. I create the content. Then from there, I find a convenient time to record. After then, I find a convenient time to edit. That's the long form. Now, podcast used to be just audio. Now, podcast is audio and video. So the kind of attention I put on audio podcast is different from the kind of attention I put to a video podcast. On the video podcast, I start looking for viral moments where I can chop it. So it's a very lengthy and exhausting process. And for somebody, because I enjoy doing it, despite the fact that I enjoy creating content, it is not everything within that value chain that I enjoy doing. So what are the things that one can do to save time when one is running a podcast?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's kind of a good place because like that's kind of the problem that Zinc solves for, is like the amount of effort it takes to like run a podcast end to end. You need to wear different hats. As you rightly said, you are like the researcher who is like finding out about this topic and this speaker, and then you're doing that. And then you are like the video director and like, bringing in the person, camera, right, and adjusting and all of those things. And then you are putting on the hat of the editor and like going and doing all the editing work. And then like you're putting on the hat of the social media marketer who's like distributing this in like different channels. And you have to wear all these hats. And frankly, like a lot of people are not good at all of these things. And so what you are good at is having this conversation, being curious about this topic. And like, that's something that's truly you, and you have to do, you're the only person who can do that. But everything else can be done by another entity. And this could be a producer that's doing the whole thing for you, or it could be software that's taking care of all of these things. And so I'd probably say there's like a few tips that I would probably say is like the best place to get started is, you got to plan your episodes and your format of your output ahead of time from the episode. Like most people like go in, have just a casual conversation, and then try to like hunt for like meaningful information from that. It helps, and we can do that, and you can do that, and you might be able to find some, but it helps to even construct your episodes in a way that would make for good content. Say, for example, if you're looking for long form video content, then make it so there's a lot of stories and there's like a lot of prep work that you have done to like ask them stories ahead of time so that you can actually see them and like you get to go with that with a long form content or so. But if your focus is on short form content, then maybe ahead of time, just tell them that these are 6-7 questions that I'm going to be asking, and I love to get an answer which is like 2 to 3 minutes long about these things. Just be upfront about that with your guest speaker, and then like start and aim for getting those few video clips out of your show. And that's what you would be focusing on. Or if your focus is more on like creating like a nice blog post and a write-up about it with like the video that goes along with that, then like think about it from that perspective to start with and like start creating it. So think about the output content before you go into the episode, and that's probably like one of the most healthiest tips that I would say. And in these days, focusing on short form content is what we are recommending for all the people. I mean, like frankly, like when I run my podcasts, I know that there's the full episode's going to be listened to by like a handful of people, but like the short form video clips are what is going to be getting as much attention or so. And then, repurpose, right? Like, can we convert this into like short form video clips to like carousels that goes on LinkedIn, to like Instagram stories and everything. And this is what Zinc does, is like takes away all that grunt work. So the platform makes everything from like bringing in a speaker to like the recording studio, the high definition video recording, as well as like converting that into like 20-30 pieces of content, from short form video clips to like websites to blog posts to audio, Spotify, and like all those things, to like LinkedIn posts to Twitter posts. All that gets automatically done, and it just clicks away from saying that like, hey, publish this content. So that's kind of what Zinc does end to end, and like it uses AI. But we highly recommend that you use the platform to think about what content you want to get and like plan for it ahead of time.
Okay, so thank you so much. Because I really want to know much more about Zinc and AI generally. Because we're aware that as creators, AI comes in. I feel that AI should come in and make my workflow, streamline my whole process essentially. So, but at the same time, there are some cases whereas you create a piece of content and you put it into an AI software with the hope that the software uh, spills out short content, but the way in which the software chops the content, if it's you don't even understand what that software was trying to achieve. Are those some of the things that you believe that Zinc can help a creator who comes on board to help them negate, and what basically sets you apart? Because I have a platform called I'm on a platform called AIEditing.com. There are new releases every day. So, but and people see all of these tools every day. So, what are the things that you feel in today's market sets Zinc apart from all of these other products that would make it worthwhile for people who want to join, like myself?
Yeah, I think the kind of the difference that we have is because we control the end-to-end flow of it. We are the recording studio and the way the video is edited. We have a bit more knowledge about what went in before you started the episode. So, for example, if you are like downloading a video, you could have recorded it on Zoom or like Google Meet, or like you could have done it in like an in-person video, and then you give it into AI. The AI is guessing the context for most of these things, and it has no input signals other than the video itself for it to get started. Whereas when you are on Zinc, Zinc is the recording studio. There are like multiple things that we can take from it. One, you can actually like seed questions and discussion points right into the platform. And this is the part where I said about like sort of prepping for it. So as a creator, you have a way to indicate to the AI system that like these are the things that I care about even before you record the episode. And so that's kind of like a good way for you to get better quality output once the content kit is produced. We call it a content kit, which has everything, all the content that's built in. And the other thing is what we call as live editing. To like say, when you are in an episode and you're talking to somebody, Zinc has a way for you to oh, you said something really interesting and I've never heard that before, and that's an interesting moment. So you can actually just press spacebar or like control spacebar while you are at it in live conversation, and Zinc will take that signal to know that like, hey, this was an interesting moment that happened. And we're using many signals that's happening while the show is happening, like, hey, you laughed at something, or like, you know, it's like this is something where like you both said like, yes, exactly, or something like that. Like, you know, it's like it's looking for signals like that to understand what moments piqued the host's interest. And because we started this as a virtual event platform, Zinc has the ability to bring in like a live audience and who can participate in your show. So when we are recording the show, if suppose you promote this in your channels and say like, you know, say, hey, I'm bringing in Arjun and like I'm going to talk about this topic, people who are interested just join the recording, and then like you can have silent people who are like watching the recording and who can say like, you know, it's like they can clap and they can like indicate what went well with them. And we're using all these signals to say like, these are the moments that were interesting, and this is what we're going to convert it into like video clips out of that. And we do like a lot of work in understanding like what are the boundaries of a question and an answer, and how to chop it so it fits like a small length, and how do you change the video so it's not just like a cut of someone talking, like the zoom effects, the b-roll effects and everything. And so we do all of those things at the end of the video is getting produced. So those are some of the ways in which we stand out from some of the existing platforms out there.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. What you just explained right now is actually a major pain point. It takes a whole lot of time to get these episodes out, and obviously, it takes a while before one can be considered career podcaster where you have like a whole production team and you can nothing beats manual because you have full control of the detail. But for someone whose only option right now to become successful is to be able to move as fast as possible and to be able to scale as fast as possible, a tool like this is very important for me to do this. And I appreciate the fact that you are out here doing your cost per acquisition per episode, which is quite smart. All right, so one final question before we call it a wrap. It's like, this is a very, very straightforward podcast. So what's like your most unpopular opinion about podcasting altogether?
Unpopular opinion about podcasting?
Yeah.
I think my most unpopular opinion is that nobody will listen to full episodes if you are just getting started right now. And I think you should be okay with that. Your full episodes are not is not going to be consumed at the pay and as how you think it is. I think the focus should be on first earning the trust that someone should give an hour of their time or 30 minutes of their time to like your episode. You need to earn that trust, and you do that in like short form content, and then maybe they might listen to your full episodes. But don't start with assuming that people are going to listen to your full episode.
That's quite heartbreaking, but it's the truth. As a podcaster, there are only an handful of podcasts that I listen to end to end, and they're just a few of them. I just go to their, I'm okay with just watching their shorts on TikTok, and I get the information that I need and I move on. But it's good to listen. It's good for somebody to confirm that I'm not running mad, that I'm not the only one behaving in such a way. So thank you so much, Arjun. Do you have any questions that you want to ask? Do you have anything that you want to say before we call it a wraps?
No, I think if people who are listening to this are like considering what is some of the easiest ways in which they want to get started, I'd probably say start thinking about it as like a habit, or like, something that you do on a cadence. This is kind of what I do on a weekly basis. And for the first 6 months of your podcast journey or so, is like ignore the output of what you get and then just do your reps and keep doing that. It's kind of like building a muscle. Like it's not going to show off for like the next 6 months or so, but like feel excited to do the reps. And so I'd say like that's kind of what we make really easy with Zinc, is like takes 5 minutes to get started, and like for you to start doing these things periodically. And then like once you start seeing the results, that's when you can like double down, spend more time on it. And so I'd say get started and don't postpone that. Yeah.
Yes, get started, don't procrastinate, and most importantly, enjoy it.
Yeah,
the podcasting is a very lonely place. I know how lonely get, but it's very rewarding. Majorly by the amount of information that you're able to like package as content for the world to enjoy. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Arjun. Ladies and gentlemen, all guys listening, this is Arjun from Zinc.ai, and it took us through the importance of content and did a deep dive into podcasting, its product, Zinc.ai, and how they are able to streamline the process of you creating content and getting the eyeballs on your content. So if any of you are interested, please go to Zinc.ai and sign up. And I did a free version for you to even test the water. I'm not going to do that free version. I'm not going to pro version of what I've heard. So thank you so much. And see you all in the next one. It will be.